Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name's Tyler Denalowitz. Today, the movie we're going to be looking at is Psycho. And Psycho is by far one of the most famous horror movies in American cinema. But we're going to be looking about how, when the movie was first released, it was very controversial. And the specific scene that I'm going to be talking about is the infamous shower scene that everyone has seen. So, kind of getting into the shower scene, I'm going to talk about some of the shots that Alfred Hitchcock used that made the shower scene what it was. You had a few medium shots that began with her writing and then her actually getting into the shower. Then you had some close-ups of like the toilet and like the shower itself, like inside the shower, her showering from different angles. You had long shots, which those ones are a little debatable if you would consider them a long shot, but her getting up to go to the bathroom. And then you have what I would consider very close up shots when after she's murdered, it's her hand and her eye really close to the camera. And all those shots kind of intensify like the dynamic of the film. You have a lot of special effects and sound effects that some of which are kind of funny once you do the research into. So, for example, since the film was in black and white, you couldn't really tell, but the blood in the shower was actually chocolate syrup, which I didn't know until doing a little bit of research. The scream when she was getting murdered was taken afterwards, and the stabbing was something called a Casaba melon. And then everyone knows the infamous sound that almost every murder horror film has kind of adapted over the years because of Psycho and because of Alfred Hitchcock like wanting to do something with an orchestra. And then you have things like lighting that Alfred Hitchcock used to his advantage. So, for example, when the curtain has been pulled and you have Norman Bates standing there and with his knife, he looks like he's almost dressed as a woman, and it's very dark, so you can't really tell who it is until later on in the film. And it just creates like a feeling of discomfort and unease that an audience wasn't really expecting, especially because the film started off with Marion taking $40,000 and kind of running away. So you thought that she was going to be your main character, and over a series of events, she gets to the Bates Motel, she meets Norman, and then gets in her room all within like the first 10-15 minutes of the film. They kill her off, and then now the audience is kind of doesn't know what to do, doesn't know what to think, doesn't know how to kind of piece the puzzle together yet. So living in the 21st century, you wouldn't assume that Psycho is that controversial, but people in the 1960s when the movie was released weren't used to seeing violence in the way that Alfred Hitchcock showed, for example, like the brutal stabbing. And people weren't familiarized with cross-dressing. And when you have Norman Bates dressing up as what is like a mother figure in his eyes, and then you create like this kind of sense of discomfort between him dressing up as that, him murdering in like her uniform or her outfits, it makes the audience very like uncomfortable and not sure how to feel. So and what really like makes it creepy is towards the end of the film when you actually see the mother's body and you kind of understand and the entire movie pulls itself together. The audience wasn't really like a huge fan at the time, but now like Psycho is arguably one of the most famous horror movies, and the shower scene is probably the most famous scene in all of American cinema history. Thank you for listening. I hope I kind of explained more about not only the plot, but the background behind the American classic Psycho.